Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Amna Gul from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication. We're back with the course Fundamentals of Public Relations, bearing the code GMC 331. It's our 15th lecture today, and the topic is Anatomy of Public Relations. We've already discussed that public image makes up 63% of the value of most companies and organizations today. When there's a mishap or when the company's reputation breaks down, it affects the company's entire corporate existence, and if it has its affiliates, those as well. So it takes around 4 to 7 years to overcome a negative reputation. Hence, it has become important for a company to invest in good public relations strategies to maintain a beneficial relationship with the public. Even though the focus of today's discussion would be on the functions of public relations manager or public relations agencies, still I'll start off with revisiting what public relations actually is in order to help you out with your video assignments. I know you are behind time for your assignments, and I thought I'd just chip in a bit more of information or revisit some of the things that we have already discussed, so that it makes it easy for you to be done with your assignments. I'll also share a video with you to help you out with that. So starting off with what is public relations? Public relations is a strategic communication process used by companies, individuals, and organizations to build mutually beneficial relationships with the public. Or, if I may state it simply, the practice of managing the flow of information between an organization and its publics. Since it's all about the communication, so communication is the flow of information. What is the end result of that communication? To have mutually beneficial relationships within the organization and the publics, if it is the organization or if it is an individual, dependent on whoever is utilizing public relations, but we usually discuss it with reference to organization, even though I've discussed it with you that everybody needs public relations. So it is not limited to businesses only. All types of organizations and brands and important people, they make use of public relations. A public relations specialist drafts a specialized communication plan and uses media as well as other direct and indirect mediums to create and maintain a positive image and a strong relationship with the target audience. In simple terms, public relations is a strategized process of managing the release and spread of organization-related information. I'll explain it in a while. To the public to maintain a favorable reputation of the organization and its brands. The process focuses on, for example, I just told you it's the strategized process of managing the release and spread of information. So, first of all, what information should be released, how it should be drafted, the choice of words, how it should be released, when it should be released, what media should be used to release that information. So these are just a few things that they do. It obviously involves many things. Now, objective. The main objective of public relations is to maintain a positive reputation of the brand and maintain a strategic relationship with the public. Prospective customers, partners, investors, employees, and other stakeholders, which lead to a positive image of the brand and make it seem honest, successful, important, and relevant. So it is just about having that reputation. Now I would like to share a video with you so that you understand what kind of stuff you can come up with. I'm sure we'll come across even better videos. So you just saw this was also an introductory video about what is public relations, and you can come up with similar types of things. Since I've left you with open choices for the format of video, so you can pick and choose between picture story or actual video content, and you can plan it accordingly. And if you haven't done the recording so far, so obviously it's better to go for a picture story now, since you're home. Let's continue. Now the question is, why do organizations need a PR strategy? Well, organizations need a PR strategy to complement the overall business plan of that organization, or to identify ways in which public relations can help achieve an organization's objectives, to focus and manage all the communications of an organization, and to ensure maximum from all public relations activities. Actually, most importantly, an organization is only as strong as its reputation, and it's the function of public relations to manage that reputation. So obviously all organizations need public relations. Now coming towards the functions, we already know, and we've discussed in it previously as well, that public relations is different from advertising. Public relations agencies don't buy ads, they don't write stories for reporters, they don't focus on attractive paid promotions. The main role of public relations is to promote the brand by using editorial content, appearing on magazines, newspapers, news channels, websites, blogs, TV programs, etc. So using earned and free media for promotion, using earned as well as free media for promotion has its own benefits, as information on these mediums aren't that. We'll be going into a deep discussion of earned and free media in next lectures. It's generally, obviously, when advertisements are paid for, that is paid media. So public relations, all the media used by public relations is either earned or free. The earned media is basically, for example, if you host an event that is of an important value, so media automatically comes over to you to cover that event. And for example, you have other examples of free media. For example, if you same is the case, for example, you write press releases and you send those to, for example, media, and they cover it. So it is once again earned and free media example that you don't pay for those things. So it has its own benefits because it is actually it has third-party validation, and hence it's not viewed with skepticism by the public. We did discuss these factors when we were discussing advertising versus public relations. So that the functions of public relations manager and public relations agencies include anticipating, analyzing, and interpreting the public opinion and attitudes of the public towards a brand, and thus drafting strategies which use free or earned media to influence them. So it is very, very important for public relations agencies, or whoever the public relation manager is, to anticipate, analyze, and interpret public opinion. Earlier I did discuss with you that at times it so happens that we come up. I discussed with you the Apple iPhone's volume album. So, for example, even Apple had this backdrop of not being able to anticipate, analyze, and interpret the public opinion, that if they add a new album to the iTunes of their customers, they might feel bad about it. So this is very, very important. Secondly, they need to draft strategies to support every campaign of the brand and every new move through editorial content. Now, once again, taking the same example of iTunes, they just did not communicate about it to their customers. They just gave them a surprise overnight. When people woke up the next morning, they found that a new album of songs was added to their iTunes. So they did not support their campaign with communication, with editorial content. this needs to be done. Then they are responsible for writing as well as for distributing press releases, what needs to go, which information needs to go into a press release, how it needs to be drafted, the choice of words, and when it needs to be released. These are actually the jobs of public relations department. They're also responsible for writing the speeches for the important personnel, for example, for the CEO and whoever heads the whoever the main heads of the organization are. Even the extempore speeches, they are actually well planned and well researched speeches. So PR department is responsible for that as well. They are also responsible for planning and executing special public outreach and media relations events. All special events are meant to gain public relations, are meant to gain goodwill, are meant to build a positive image of the organization and its employees. So PR department and PR managers, they are responsible for planning and executing special public outreach and media relations events. Media relations, is also very, very important. Then they are also responsible for writing content for the web. It can be internal as well as external websites. Since we have already had a discussion about internal publics as well as external publics, so even organizations have their own social media platforms and websites for separate for internal as well as external customers. So they are responsible for dealing both of these. Then they are also responsible for developing a crisis public relations strategy. Crisis strategies should never be left out for when a crisis comes in. Strong public relations departments and managers, they have a vision and they foresee things and they tend to plan things in advance, just in advance, in case there is a crisis. So what kind of strategy they can have specifically with respect to internal employees, for example, with respect to financial institutions, with respect to media, with respect to government and stuff. So they plan things in advance. Obviously, whenever there is a crisis, the actual crisis, things have to be planned there. And then we did discuss some of the case studies, if you remember. And for each case study, this crisis strategy differed. That is because each crisis is different, so it has to be handled differently. Then the PR personnel are also responsible for handling the social media presence of the brand or the company or the organization and responding to public views on social media websites. There are so many organizations who tend to have their social media pages or accounts, but they do not respond to what the public says about them. What are the reviews? Actually, they should respond to it, and it is actually the task of public relations department to respond to public reviews on social media websites, because if nobody responds, obviously the other opinion takes momentum. So they need to settle things in advance, and they need to keep a check on what is being said about their organization or brand or company, etc. Then public relations department is also responsible for counseling the employees of the organization with regard to the policies, the course of action, organization's responsibility, and even the employees' responsibility. This is very, very important because employees are actually the strength of the organization. So public relations department looks into keeping these employees satisfied and up to date with regard to policies and the course of actions, and giving them timely information about whatever is happening, and keeping a check on what the employees have to say about the organization. So it is a counseling function. It's not more like informing them, it's more like counseling them. Then dealing with government and legislative agencies on behalf of the organization. This is once again the job of public relations departments. For example, we did discuss previously as well. There's so many times we come across, for example, even in Pakistan, we come across that whenever the budget is announced, there are certain sectors who tend to complain that the budget allocation for that particular sector is very less. So actually, it has to be done in advance. There are so many organizations who have their own connections with government and legislative agencies, and they make sure that those steps are taken, those laws are passed that are in favor of those organizations. So they keep on working for it, and we'll be discussing this more in lobbying as well. And then public relations departments are also responsible for dealing with public groups and other organizations with regard to social and other policies of the organization and legislation of the government. This actually comes in the same thing, that they are the public relations agencies or the public relations manager. They do not stick to just the current public, rather they look into who can be the potential public of that organization, be it other organizations or public groups. So they actually keep in contact with them, and they work towards having those policies that are in favor of that organization, that are in favor of the kind of work that organization does. Do you remember we discussed, for example, Pakistan's carpet industry, and because owing to the discussions about child labor, Pakistan lost its carpet industry because we were not able to deal with that crisis. We did not take a public relations approach to dealing with that crisis, and we lost such a big export opportunity. Like, we were into carpet industry, and it was a very strong carpet industry, but just because we were actually using child labor, and it was it came into the media highlights, so we lost it. So this is very important for public relations to understand the relationship with not only with governments but also with other public groups and organizations, be those national or international, depending on the kind of work that organization does or the kind of business that it takes. Similarly, public relations manager is also responsible for looking into or handling investor relations, because investments or finance is the backbone of any organization. So for that matter, your investors, wherever applicable, they need to be well satisfied and well. You need to maintain good enough contacts with them. They need a very good reputation. Makes a lot of difference here. We'll continue with the functions. Rather, in the next lecture, I'll share with you some of the examples of public relations, and then we'll go into further details. That's all for today. Thanks.